All right, welcome back to the Beast Lab post game. I'm here with Taylor Cummings. We're going to get into her professional season last year with AU, and we're also going to be talking a little bit more about men's and women's lacrosse and the equality differential, both on broadcast and pay, as well as playing. So I want to thank Taylor Cummings for coming back here with the post game.
Thanks so much. Excited to have this chat.
So tell me about your first season with AU. Give us a breakdown of the structure of the league and what you thought of it.
AU was something that I really didn't know what it was going to be like. Honestly, walking in, it was so different than any other model that our professional women had played, the professional men's leagues had been, just completely off any sort of normalcy. So going in, we were all, I think, a little bit skeptical and a little bit curious about how this was going to work. Basically, we lived at a Homewood Suites for 5 weeks in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Each week you had new teams, new captains picking, and there was a leaderboard where every single thing you did on the field contributed to either points for you, points against you. You could win. You also then had team points for if you won a quarter, you got 20 points for your team. Everyone on the team got 20 points. If you won an entire game, you got an extra 45 points. So it was all very point-based. And we didn't actually know the scoring system and how that would work until we got there that first week. So a lot of unknowns. I think for us, one of the concerns was that it would be very individual. And, you know, the mindset of like, well, why would I pass the ball if, you know, a goal is 12 points and an assist is only 4. And I think what they did a nice job is by having those team win points and the quarter win points mean so much that really brought that sort of team aspect back to it. So I think what we found quickly, what you realized quickly was that you had to draft a team that was going to win. So that means you had to be on a team with not only good players, but people that you wanted to be around that week. So good personalities, good chemistry, selfless players. And then, you know, you wanted to go out and compete, and that, you know, Kenzie Kent scoring 6 goals while you weren't getting those 72 points, it helped you get, you know, your 20. So you wanted the people around you to succeed. And that's where, you know, I think the group was really special because that could have turned negative and selfish and very individualized very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you. I don't think men could do that. I don't think we're equipped.
I
don't think we're equipped for that, man.
To be quite honest.
I think every face-off guy would win the ball and just run through the defense and try to score every time. No, I remember seeing it. I had no idea that you guys stayed at Homewood Suites for 5 weeks. I thought you guys were traveling and playing in a different place every weekend. That's unbelievable. So for 5 weeks, you guys basically essentially bubbled to have the season.
Yes.
Wow.
And yeah. So you played every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You had Monday off, and you practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that was our world. You kind of like anything that happened in the real world, you just kind of didn't know about. Because you were kind of in this like fantasy, like mini 5-week college semester. It was really fun, but you also got out of it and you're like, oh, I have to go, you know, be a real person now and not just play lacrosse all day.
You know, I think that's interesting because from a long-term perspective, like I wouldn't have been able to do that after the age of 29. Like there's no way. So I'm just interested to see how that evolves, because being away from work for 5 weeks just is a no-go for a lot of people. But hopefully it gains enough traction. When you look at it from a positive and negative standpoint, what were some of the pros and cons, or maybe things that maybe you'd like to see come to fruition down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard thing, you kind of touched on it, was like some of the best players couldn't play within that system. Just because it was, you know, you were either in or you're out. And that's just the model that happened this year, partially because of COVID. And so, you know, I'm hoping that there is a way to make it inclusive for everyone to be able to potentially do, so that you do get, you know, the Alice Mercers and you know, the Gussie Johnses and Liz Hogans, the ones who would have absolutely played if they could, but with what they do for a living, it couldn't happen. As far as the pros, you know, I think the one thing that AU did so incredibly well was the visibility of it, from the marketing to the social media to every game being either broadcasted on TV or streamed on YouTube and Facebook. They did a really, really good job of making all 30 of those games visible to the community. And it was the coolest thing to be in a hotel where you could literally turn on the TV to, you know, NBC or I'm sorry, CBS or Fox, and actually turn on a game. And I know that's something that is taken for granted a lot by other sports, but for us to be able to just be like, okay, you know what, I'm the first game, I'm going to go home, shower, kick back my heels and watch this second game on TV and just click a channel was huge for us, and something that never happened before in the past pro seasons. Rarely happens outside of Final Four for women's collegiate play. So I think they did an incredible job where that was concerned.
I totally agree. I actually had more people reach out to me saying they saw an AU game at a bar this summer than they did for PLL.
I mean, not great for PLL, but awesome for us.
Well, to be fair, PLL has Peacock, so most, you know, the games were on there. But like, yeah, like I would be turning through the channels and I'd see it all the time. So that's why I'm kind of shocked that it was only like a 5 weeks at Homewood, because it felt like it was the whole summer. Not Homewood, Homewood
Suites.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were there.
Sweet. So yeah, the AU, I think, did an awesome job from a visibility standpoint. One of the things I did make a comment earlier this summer, I was actually with Deemer Class. We are at his Best in Class event, and Deemer does an awesome job with his content. And I was like, I feel like half of the kids that are in college right now are also into the content world in lacrosse. I don't know, but I feel like this last year, just this past weekend with USA Lacrosse, they did an awesome job on social. That was the best job they've ever done for any event. So I think, you know, it's definitely been good at maximizing visibility in our sport. When you said women getting a lot less attention on TV, that's definitely something I want to talk about. You have been a very vocal voice and an advocate for the equality of attention in lacrosse, broadcast, and I want to first off give you a ton of credit, because I feel like a lot of times in our sport, especially because a lot of us are attached to a clinic business or a club business, people are afraid to voice what's right, in my opinion. So, and they're afraid that it's going to hurt their branding, which sadly sometimes in our sport, because of the demographic, is the case. So I want to commend you for that. Secondly, tell me the feeling you have when you're about to send out that tweet. You see the ESPN schedule pop up, and there's like 4 girls games. What goes through your mind before you send that tweet out?
I usually try to like take a second and not put what I actually want to say out onto social media. So I usually write down. I'm somebody who writes down what I say, exactly how I want to say it. And then I'm like, okay, I could probably say this in a little bit more of a tasteful manner. So I've learned to edit myself over the years, which is, you know, a good thing, I guess. But for me, I think, you know, it's just like, it's a never ending cycle of like disappointment, honestly, where in college, you're in college, you don't notice it as much because you're playing. So you're not really thinking about who can watch the game and, you know, whether, you know, grandma and grandpa can find the stream or not. And back when, you know, I was playing, especially early on, streams weren't really a thing. Like you either went to the game or you didn't. And then we started to get into the realm of, okay, well, now you have to pay $27 to gain access to, you know, the stream and whatnot. And, you know, I think for me, having graduated and seeing, yes, ESPN has like 37 men's games and 3 women's games that are, you know, the same 2 teams playing 2 games. Like it would even be like Hopkins women are playing 3 games against 3 different opponents, and that's it. And awesome for Hopkins women, but what is happening? Like, where is everyone else? And you know, it's just really disheartening because I do feel like, it's like the chicken, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, how do you get more people to watch our game when it's not on TV and when it's not easily accessed? And so you just have this battle of how do you get it? How do you make it right? And how do you get eyes on our sport when you can't even see it?
That was the quintessential Major League Lacrosse problem, the chicken and the egg issue. And the problem with Major League Lacrosse was that they marketed 99% of their marketing towards kids, which is fine if the only demographic that is playing lacrosse every weekend and can't come to your games in the summer wasn't kids. So hard to fill seats when you're only marketing to kids. There's no beer at the games. You're playing at college venues. Marketing, as you know, Major League Lacrosse was completely absent. So the question was, well, we need more, if players want to get paid more, we need more butts in the seats. Well, we don't get more butts in the seats because we need to be on TV. Well, they won't put us on TV because our ratings are low. Well, our ratings can't go higher unless we're on TV. So I feel like that was the quintessential issue. I think what the PLL seemingly has done is they've said, look, we know eventually we'll get butts in the seats. What we want to do is we want to give you a professional level broadcast, impressive, so that, and they obviously overload social media. Now they brought in PLL bets and DraftKings. So they're like, look, eventually you're going to watch this on TV enough where you're like, Dad, I want to go to a game. And that's what they're banking on, I think. And I think they've also done a good job of marketing to the 30, 40 somethings.
Absolutely.
And I think when you look at the, like how many, when you look at, okay, there's 4 women's games and 60 men's games. Well, there's not 60 times more boys lacrosse players in this country.
Exactly.
So if you start feeding more of the people that are at home watching it, most girls, to be honest, and you would know better than I, probably have no clue that women's lacrosse is on. So of course they're not going to go look for it on TV. But if you give them a chance, even if it's just on the ESPN app, then you'll see this popping up more. I feel like I get that you do need to charge something, right? If we're going to put money into a broadcast, it has to be a charge. But what if you have the whole conference together? If we broadcast it together as a conference, then we share that expenditure, and they don't have to charge much. If you charge $3, then we can do that. A lot of people, I have an Altitude subscription, so I can watch the Pios play college lacrosse because we have FOA guys on it. So I feel like, you know, what would your solve be if you had any ideas?
You know, I think that conference idea is really solid. And that's where, you know, I got really excited about when we got the Big Ten, when we moved to the Big Ten at Maryland. I was definitely very hesitant because I wanted to go to an ACC school. And so we switched my junior year. So I got 2 in ACC, 2 in Big Ten. And what I saw that the Big Ten really did a great job of was their broadcast, their Big Ten network. So I pay for BTN Plus, you know, every year so that I can watch all of the games. And for me, that's worth it. And so I think if ACC network is now doing it, ACC network is a little difficult because it's all tied up in who you get your TV subscription from. So I still can't watch ACC network because the Xfinity doesn't carry it. But at least, you know, it's an option for people. So I feel like the conference way is the way to go, get them to, you know, broadcast their own games for their sports. And, you know, I do think the women, like I pay for men's, like my BTN covers the men's games too. So I am able to watch that. But I think that's a great idea and something that's going to have to happen. And then, you know, the NCAA's got to figure out how come tournament time, how to get these games on TV. Because I think that's the other issue that we're running into. We're finally getting into the highest level of lacrosse possible. And there were, I think, 10 first round games on the Friday of the first round of the tournament. And they were all played at the same time, all streaming on ESPN, which is awesome, but you literally had to click through. So that's where the NCAA's got to be better from a scheduling perspective too.
Yeah. Optics wise, from an equality standpoint, not a good year for ESPN. No. From golf to lacrosse to all kinds of things, they dropped the ball. Women's basketball. Yeah, they dropped the ball, and it's got to get figured out. So when you are, because I'm curious, because like Paul Rabel and I, one of the things that we have, you know, really good communication with as friends is from a social standpoint, we agree on a lot of things, especially from an equality standpoint, an equity standpoint. When you look at your voice, does it feel like sometimes that you're a little lonely out there, or are there people that agree with you? Like you'll tweet something and they'll text you and say, yeah, that was great. But it's kind of like, yeah, but where's your public voice? Do you get that feeling sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. I think what is really helpful, I think the women's lacrosse community in general is very, on top of it in terms of their voice and voicing their opinions. But I think what helps the most, honestly, is when people like you and Paul and other top male figures within our sport also have opinions and they voice those opinions. And I think you and Paul and a few others do a great job, but I think that's where we could really use the support, is like more people who are not just like, when the people who are affected are saying stuff, that's one thing. But when people who are not affected, but come in and support and are allies, and that goes for everything, right? It's not just women's lacrosse. We saw like racial issues, LGBTQI plus issues, all of these different things. When you have people who are as not affected by it, but are just as pissed off as the people who are affected, that's when the change happens. And that's where, we kind of look around sometimes and we're like, okay, I've had so many conversations with men's players who say, yeah, that sucks. Yeah, that, that's really unfair. Where are you? Where to your hundreds of thousands of followers? And that's where, it can get frustrating, but then we fall into the brand aspect and lacrosse community being so small. So you got to kind of walk this tightrope, which I do understand is, difficult at times.
Yeah, and I think that at certain points you have to make your decision. Is it more important to keep 5,000 more followers on Instagram, or is it more important to make a positive difference? I feel like if you are maybe a younger 20-something guy and you feel this way, it probably takes much bigger balls to step up and say something 100%. Than someone who, myself, I have 2 kids, I'm married, and all I can think about when I see injustice is what world are my kids going to live in, and I'm compelled to say something. I don't want girls that are the same age as my son when they're my age to live in a world that's exactly the same as this or worse. I want things to be definitively better. I want it to be better for everybody. But it's easier for me, because if I lose 5,000 followers, I don't care. It gives a crap. So I do think that you're right, there is a chance, but that's the whole reason that we say stuff, because it shouldn't be a chance. It shouldn't be cost me any kind of marketing because I'm saying what's right. And I agree with you. I think the people who are comfortable and they're going to be okay regardless of, who's leading, who's saying stuff, who's out there, I'm going to have an okay life. If you step out there and you put yourself on the line, I agree with you. I think that makes a big difference. But the ball only gets rolling if somebody is willing to start pushing it. So I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Taylor, this was an awesome conversation. I want to thank you so much for being our first guest. And we will be looking forward to more conversations like this with other people, not just in the lacrosse world. We'll be looking for people in the strength training world, physical therapy, etc. So stay tuned for more episodes. Taylor Cummings, thank you so much for joining us on the New Beast Lab.
Thanks so much. I've loved every second.